Hi everyone, this is Massimo and here we go again with a new QLC Plus video tutorial. This time I'm gonna talk about chasers, which are another important piece of lighting design with QLC Plus. I've started from tutorial number 4 and I just added a new fixture, which is another LED bar like the one I used in tutorial number 4. I've added some more functions to show how chasers will blend them and how to create an animated light show with the simple use of chasers and scenes. So let's start creating one. So this is the button to create the new chaser. And when I click on it, a new chaser is added and the chaser editor is shown on the right. A chaser is composed by steps. Each step has a number, a progressive number, a name, which is basically the function name which you associate to, fade in, hold, fade out, duration, times, and eventually some notes in case you need them to remember each step what it does. A chaser can be configured to play in different ways. For example, on the bottom we've got all the options to configure how the steps will be played during a chaser playback. For example, by default a chaser is in loop mode, so that means if when the last step is reached, it will continue endlessly from the beginning and so on. A single shot means that the steps will be played just once, and ping pong means that when the last step is reached, the chaser will go backward until it reaches the first step and so on. So from the first to the last and from the last to the first. So let's start adding some functions. I say functions because you can add any function to a chaser, not only scenes, but for this tutorial I'm gonna show you only how a chaser behaves with scenes. To a chaser you can add any function, any QLC Plus function, so you can add audio, for example, you can add RGB matrices or collections or effects and so on. Any function will do, and any function will be represented as a step of a chaser, so you have to imagine it as a sequence of steps. So let's start adding some scenes. When I click on the add button, this window show up, allow me to select the functions I need for my chaser, and there are some filters on the bottom where you can filter in and out the functions you need to add. For example, if I deselect scenes, they will disappear from this panel, and the same for all the other functions that I don't have yet. So this panel allows you to with a multiple selection, so you can add, for example, 3 scenes by just dragging the mouse over them or by pressing the Control key. So for example, I want the blue scene, the green scene and the purple scene. If I click OK, the chaser editor will set up my 3 steps that I have chosen. By default, all the timings here are set to 0, so if you play the chaser now, it will be kinda useless because it will loop at the maximum speed with no timings at all. In case of scenes, this is very simple because scenes, and actually any other QLC Plus function, don't have a whole time. So a scene have a fade in and a fade out, but if the duration is set to 0, it will play at the maximum speed. So as a first step, I will leave everything by default. For example, these are the controls of the steps timings, and for now I will leave them by default. The only parameters I need to change is the hold time, that I can change from here or using the speed dials. So if I click on this icon here, this little panel will show up. It's very similar to the one we've seen with scenes. And as you can see, the only parameters active here is the hold time. It's simple because the fade in and fade out speeds are taken from the steps themselves. So for example, if I want, I can, let's say, set 3 seconds for the common hold time. I can say it is common because it's set here. The duration and the hold time are common for each step. Well, actually the duration, but I act on the hold time, and we'll see later what is the difference. So if I play the chaser now, let's see the preview with my usual crappy webcam. If I play the chaser now, it will already do something. It will run through the blue scene, the green scene, and the purple one, and then back to the blue, and then on green, and then the purple one. The image here is very bad, as we've seen the last time, so this time I'm gonna use another tool, another handy tool, which has been introduced in QLC Plus version 4.7.0. So for example, let's see it again. Here's the green scene, the purple one, and then the blue one, and then again the green one and the purple one. There are differences between these steps, because if you remember from the last tutorial, the blue and the green scene had fade in and fade out times. Let's see it again. They had 3 seconds of fade in and 5 seconds of fade out. Same for the green scene. It has 3 seconds of fade in and 5 seconds of fade out. So the chaser right now will try to respect those timing. And here, by saying default, I'm telling the chaser to use the timings it finds in the scenes. So right now it tries to do 3 seconds of fade in and 5 seconds of fade out for the blue and the green scene. The purple scene has no fade in and no fade out. We can see it here, 0 and 0. So the chaser will not fade to the purple scene. Let's see it again. So the blue scene has a fade, the green scene has a fade, and it will blend against the blue scene, while the purple scene has no fade. As you can see, it's immediate, while the first two steps are blending between each other. Okay, so let's stop this for now. When I hit stop, it performs actually the fade out time of the step that I have reached. So for example, if I click on the green scene and I hit play, and then I hit, okay, I will do it on the blue scene. Okay, if I hit stop here, it will fade out in 5 seconds as specified in the scene itself. Okay, this is already a very basic usage of a chaser. So I've created a sequence, an endless sequence of scenes running through the blue, the green, and the purple color. This can be already something good for some cases, but let's go a little bit further. How can I improve my chaser in terms of timing? How can I control them? So if I, for example, set common timings for all my steps, it means that the fade in time and the fade out time will be the scene fade in time and fade out time will be overridden by the chaser. So let's see what happens when I say common here. Right now there is no fade, so as you can see I've got immediate color because I have overridden the fade in and fade out times and I have set them to 0. So let me fix something because it's not clear here. Okay, I'm gonna use a little bit more of light so you can see how it looks on the monitor. Same thing here and here. Same thing for the purple one. And there you go. So let's go back to the chaser and now it should be clearer. Okay, this is blue and then green and then purple. I don't know why this one is lower, but it makes sense. Let me double check. Okay, because the intensity here is lower. Okay. Okay, so right now I've got immediate color, which can be another usage of a chaser. If you want instant colors, you can do it like this, or you can add scenes that have no fade in or fade out times. So you just decide how long they will last as a step, and that's it. For example, if I create a black scene, which I haven't created yet, let's say intensity, but all this stuff is 0. And I'm gonna call this black scene. Okay, so if I, for example, add the black scene, when you add a step, it will be added after the one currently selected. So here it is, my black scene. So if I play my chaser, it will be blue and then black and then green and then purple and so on. Okay, for example, this is another interesting thing. If your fixture doesn't have a strobe capability, with just 2 steps you can simulate a strobe feature with a chaser. It's very simple. You just need to do, I don't know, white and black. You decide the timings and then you play the chaser, and that's it. You've got you've got a strobo effect. But let's go a little bit further. For now I will remove this black scene. If I want to have some blending between the steps and I want to have them with the same timings, right now I have a common fade in and a common fade out. So if I tweak the fade in time and I want, for example, half of a second, and same here. Okay, now it will override, it will keep on overriding the fade times, and in half a second it will fade from a step to another. And that's very easy to do and very quick to do. Okay, so let's stop this. And also the purple scene now acquired half a second of fade out. So when I stopped it on the purple scene, it faded for half a second. Okay, let's go a little bit further. This is nice when you have when you desire to have all the steps with the same timings, but in some cases, for example in theater usages, you might want to control exactly the duration of each scene. For example, if you play over a music and you know how long the music is, you already know the timings of each scene, of each step. So if you want to control them step by step, just switch to this mode here. So if I click on per step, I will be able to do different timings for each step. So for example, I want 1 second here. Note that I can edit a step by double clicking on the time and entering a number. By default, a number is taken into seconds. But so for example, I want 1 second of fade in here, no fade in here, and half a second here. Okay. I will have 1 second, no fade, and then half a second of fade, and again. Okay, the same thing that I can do for fade times, I can do them for the duration itself. Here I can set, for example, 5 seconds, and it will calculate the whole time depending on the duration. Here, for example, I want 2 seconds, and here I want 1 second. And that's it. For example, let's try this. Okay. No fade in, 2 seconds, and then okay, this is very short, but if I want, I don't know, 2 seconds, and here we go again, and then blue, green has no fade in, and then purple, and again. So basically this is it for scenes, for chasers. This is basically everything you need to know. You can play with the run order, you can play with the direction, but the behavior of a chaser is the one described. I can create a new one, for example, to show you other usages. So let's add some. I've created a couple of scenes with okay, it has 3 seconds of fade in, and then it will go to, okay, this doesn't make much sense, but it's actually doing its job. I mean, it's not wrong. For example, I don't want to fade in, and here we go, 3 seconds of one, and 3 seconds of the other. And then it is up to your fantasy how to create a chaser. For example, I don't want fade out as well, so let's see, these are very plain colors. Oh, let's do the okay, so it's faster, and the fixtures are actually doing what they are supposed to do. It's a very bad quality, but that's the thing. Okay, let's stop this. The chaser editor have some editing functionalities, so you can add or remove steps. You can move the order of a step. For example, if I want the opposite of this one, I can do this, and it will be the opposite as before. Okay. Okay, this is the correct order. For example, if I want to I have a repetitive sequence, I can select my steps, copy them in the clipboard, and then they will be passed after the step selected. So for example, like this doesn't make any sense because I have repetitive sequence anyway, but just to show you what you can do very quickly. For example, if I want to go duration by step, for example, I want 1 second here, 1 second here, 2 here, 2 here, 1, and so on. I don't know, I'm just, there you go. 1 second, 1 second, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, and 1 second, and there, and again. Okay, one feature that you might want to use in some cases, it's infinite time. So let's create a new chaser, another one, and I will add the blue, the green, and the purple again. Okay, this time as a hold time I will set it to infinite. What does this mean? It means that the step will never end. So for example, if I play the blue step here, okay, it will never stop. And what is the usage of this functionality? It's very simple. It's when you want to manually control the playback of each step. So if I go to the green step, I can, but in this case it's manual, it's totally manual control. And this introduces an application of chaser directly into the virtual console. So let's give a name to this one, fade colors. Okay, this is 2 plus 2, I don't know, I'm inventing the names, and this is infinite colors. Okay, so if I go on the virtual console, I have the widgets I left from the last tutorial, and now I'm gonna create a new one. The most appropriate for a chaser is a queue list, but you can create a button as well, because on a button you can associate any function. So I have all my scenes here, but I can assign a chaser as well. So if I assign the 2 plus 2 chaser, when I go to operate mode here and I hit on this one, it will play my chaser. Since my chaser is in loop mode, with just one click I will have a sequence that will end when I decide it to end. So if I hit here, it will stop immediately. Okay, if you want fade out time when you hit stop, you just need to set it to your chaser steps. It's very, very simple. As I said, the most appropriate widget here for a chaser is the queue list. Okay, the queue list if I double click on it, it will show this panel here, and the only possible function that could be associated to a queue list is actually a chaser. So if I hit on plus, it will show only chasers here, and for example I will set infinite colors. Here in these properties I can assign an external control to the queue list functionality. So I will have a control for the playback, so either play or stop, and for the next queue, the previous queue, and the crossfade functionalities. We'll see this later because it's not so simple. Okay, for now, as you can see, the queue list have taken is displaying the steps of the chaser, and if you remember, the duration here is infinite. So if I go to operate mode and open up this monitor here, and I hit on play, the blue scene, as you can see, it recognizes also a button associated to it. The blue scene will stay there forever. So in this case, if I associate an external, for example a MIDI control button, I can manually move to the step I want. With the queue list, I can also click on the step I want if I'm using a mouse. So for example, if I'm on the purple scene and I want to go to the blue scene or the green scene directly, I just click on it and it will go to the green scene, to the step I decided. Here this usage can come handy when you are following a live show, and for example in a theater, not always the scenes the acts have a precise time, so you might want to decide to set all your steps to infinite unless you are sure that they will you need an exact timing. But if you set the duration to infinite, then you have manual but perfect control over what's happening on the stage. So if an actor cut a little bit of a scene or it takes longer, then you can follow what's happening manually by proceeding on the next step when it's actually time to do it. Another thing that can come useful during live shows is the crossfade functionalities of the queue lists. For this functionality I need a new chaser, because I don't want the steps to have any fade in or fade out time. So I'm gonna clone this chaser here, and I'm gonna call it infinite colors but no fade. So I'm gonna set the fade times to common, and by default they are 0, so these scenes will not fade here. Okay, go back to the virtual console. I'm gonna create another queue list here and assign infinite colors no fade. Okay, so what happens in this case? If I go to operate mode and play it, I've got my blue scene. If I progress to the next one, I've got instant colors. Okay, the interesting part is when I open this panel here, when I click on this slider, I've got access to the crossfade sliders. These sliders represent the intensity level of the current step, which is represented by the color blue, and the next step, which is the orange color. The step number is written in this box below. When I move the sliders, I can control the intensity of the step I want in this way. Okay? But the interesting part comes when I link them together. So I link the current step with the next step, and if I move the sliders, they are now connected, so I'm actually blending between the blue scene and the green scene. Okay, so blue on one end and the full green on the other end. The interesting thing comes when I reach the opposite side of these sliders, and it's this. Okay, so right now the cue list moved to the next step, so the green scene became my blue box here, step number 2, and the purple scene became step number 3, the orange box. As you can see, they are inverted here, so when one is 0, the other one is 100%. So if I move back again, I will go to the purple scene. So one end is the green scene now, and the other end is purple scene. Okay, if I move to the opposite side, I am now on the purple scene, so the blue box represents the purple scene, and so on. So this is the behavior you have. This is very interesting on a theater usage, because you probably don't know exactly how long an act will take. So if you are following the show, you have manual control over the fading between a scene and another, an act and another. Here I can place my notes, for example blue one, on the fly, and it changes on the chaser as well. For example, if I go here, where is it? Okay, I've got the note here in real time. I think it is all for chasers, basically because it's really up to your fantasy to decide, because there are a lot of parameters, and at the beginning it might be confusing, so it is suggested to play with chasers, because they are very powerful and you can achieve a lot of different things with them. Okay, so that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and bye from Massimo.